wah, wah, wah. Everybody. Anyhow, is that the dog? Dog? Todd, are your feet barking? Because you know why it is. Your feet are barking because you haven't hit like or subscribe. So if your feet are barking, click like and subscribe. Put your feet in a nice bubble bath too. You really enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome to Swing Batter. I am your host, Brendan. And joining us today to debate some great, fantastic contracts is your one, the only favorite. You can't hear me? What's wrong?
You got really soft.
You got really soft? I'm still loud in my mind.
Yeah, better bring the mic in. That's better.
Bring it in the mic. Here we go. Boys, bring it. Should we make it like... Should we bring it way in?
No, just straight up and down. It's fine.
Should we do NPR style? Hello. Do you quilt? Have you made a quilt lately? Welcome to Swing Batter, where we want to bring quilting back to baseball. Because there's nothing better than building a quilt while watching the game that you love. 2.5? No. 3.5? Nope. Baseball will give you 4.5 hours to make that quilt. And if you come to the Diamondbacks, we got plenty of room. That quilt can be whatever size you want. We have whole sections for you. Come on down. Enjoy the game. All right, everybody. I'm your host, Brendan. Welcome to Swing Batter, where we get to go over contracts that we think are sketchy, we think are interesting, and we think just downright suck. I'm with your two favorite. Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm so great. You want to know why? We just had the frost quake hit the Northeast, where everybody was really, really cold. And I think it's like the last gasp of Mother Nature before pitchers and catchers, because she knows we're coming for her. Summer's coming, baby. I know, listen, and always, this is what happens up here this time of year. We always get like one last snowstorm in March. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're doing good this winter so far. Don't do the snow thing.
Very good. And your other host, Dad.
Yeah, doing fine. I'm really excited about spring training. It's something exciting about spring training is every team has not lost a game, and they're all telling their fans how much they improved during the offseason with their trades and free agents and all the guys they didn't like that they got rid of and how they're such a better team. So until the season starts, they're right. They're all tied for first.
They are all tied for first. And this year we had a lot of great signings. We had a lot of wonderful teams talk about their great success. The only teams that aren't talking really about their success, I would say, are teams like Oakland. They know they're bad. They know they didn't sign anyone. They're really not putting out any press releases. As far as they're concerned, they're just hoping they get through spring training and start the season, and nobody notices. However, we took to notice some players that we think are going to heavily disappoint these teams. And we're going to start with our top 5 players that we think, and when I say we, my father, his first list, top 5 players that will disappoint you this year. So if you're buying jerseys out there, be prepared to burn these at the end of the season. The number 1 jersey burning party is going to be the one, the only, Texas Rangers, Jacob deGrom. Dad?
Well, the reason I picked him, I started with the highest salary. So here's the highest salary that I thought is built to disappoint is just his track record of not pitching. When he pitches, he's the best in baseball. So, you know, what did he win last year with the Mets? 5 games? He had 5 wins for the whole season?
He only played 5 games.
Yeah. So
he's 100% winner.
So... Well, he also was pretty famous for allowing 1 run and they're losing 2-1. Or, you know, he was famous for getting him into the 7th when he had to come out of the game, a 1-1 game, and then it's up to the bullpen anyway. So I think that if he continues, he's going to have some injury problems, and Texas would love to have him. Hey, anybody would love to have this guy pitch a whole season. He'd probably win 26 games. But I think they're going to be disappointed. He doesn't have a track record of pitching that for a full season.
This is why you're wrong. And I said this when the Mets let him go. As long as he's not pitching for the Mets, he's going to pitch a full season. I think he's going to win at least 2 more Cy Youngs with the Texas Rangers, and the Rangers will not be disappointed in him. As a Mets fan, I would love to see the Rangers suffer for stealing our boy. But I just, it's too obvious to me to go with the highest salary as your number one, right? I'm going to go with high salaries and pick this as the, it's too obvious a setup. This is the type of thing where you look at it, and if you had to make a bet, does this guy pitch a whole season or not? It seems like it's too easy. The house knows something here. Something's going to happen. I don't think I think he's going to do good for the Rangers this year. I think it's the rest of the Rangers pitching staff that's going to be a problem, and the rest of the Rangers offense that's going to be an issue. But I don't think DeGrom gets his jersey burned in Texas this year. I don't think that happens. I think you're wrong on that. Just because it's lining up, it's just too obvious.
All right. I will tell you what I would like to see. Vegas, the betting odds, the online gambling sites. I would love to see an over-under on innings pitched for Mr. Jacob deGrom. And I would love to see where the line ends up being. Because if you had my bet, I would be betting on the under, because I would imagine that they're going to put that right around 120 innings. That's what I would put as my over-under if I was starting, and I would be on the underside for Mr. Jacob. Do I think they're going to be disappointed in Texas and want to burn his jersey? No, because he's a future prom date, and when you have a first-time date with somebody and you truly love them, and you bring them on and you smell all the roses, the first year will be like, oh, it's not his fault. He had these issues. The training staff had to get to know him. He got hay fever in the barn we call a stadium. There'll be all sorts of reasons why Jacob didn't perform, because they're too invested to blame him and they're too invested to have a shouting match about him. It's not like this is their 4th year with Jacob. So brand new start. Even if he does an under, I think they're still going to be happy because it's Texas. To Todd's point, there's some other disappointments on that team that they signed that they could easily be upset with, but I would argue it's Texas, and they're still hurt about the Cowboys. So I don't think they're really upset about Jacob yet, and I don't think they're going to be. But that's Dad's number 1 list on the chart, Mr. Jacob deGrom. Number 2.
Well, currently, I just looked this up. DeGrom's currently the odds-on favorite to win the Cy Young in the American League this year.
I will bet against that. How much do I get back for that?
He's plus 600, plus 500, plus 850. Currently with sports books that haven't sponsored us yet, so you're not getting a shout out.
All right. Well, I will tell you, I would bet the house against that. Anybody but him is who I would bet for, but I'm pretty sure that you can't gamble every other player against Jacob. You have to pick the Cy Young, correct?
Yeah, you got to pick it, right. So I do have bet 100, bet 100, get 500.
Okay, I do have a question for you. He is in the AL now. So right. How is Carlos? Where's Carlos in comparison to Jacob?
Carlos Rodon.
2 National League guys going to the American League.
He's 4th. Right now it's DeGrom, Cole, Keese. I didn't even know the White Sox had a pitcher by the name of Kesey.
Cease for the White Sox. I think
Cease and desist.
Yes.
He is unbelievable.
Fantastic.
He's amazing.
He's unbelievably unknown by me. How about that?
Well,
because he's in Illinois, but you're telling me the top 4, 2 are Yankees.
Yeah. Garrett Cole and Rodon.
Wow. Well,
the Yankees staff is stacked.
If you're the Yankees and you don't go to the series this year, like what do you want? What do you do?
I want it. I want it known too. For those of you that are going to sit here and say, "How does he not know who Cease is?" You got to keep in mind what you're getting when you come here to swing batter. You also get batter commentary too. I mean, I played a whole 5 years of Little League baseball. That's the level of expertise you're getting here. So take it for what it is. But yeah, Rodon is 4th.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I think this year, after spring training, we should lay down some swing batter bets for everybody. Tell us what we think the top bets are going to be. And again, like our list and like everything else, we're here to help you, not follow us, so you can make money. So if you bet with us, you're probably going to lose. But if you bet against us, chances are pretty good in your favor. So, Dad, number 2 that you had on your list is Mr. Edwin Diaz, the relief pitcher that was signed by the New York Mets. He is number 2 on at the end of the year, you're going to want to burn his jersey. The only reason why I can see that happening is if the Mets do not make the playoffs because he blows some saves at the end of the year. And being a save guy, there's a lot of pressure there. Dad, why don't you go into this a little more detail and more depth for us, please?
I just have a thing against a lot of money to a reliever. Except for Mariano Rivera. For the most part, when you're betting on a reliever, they tail off. I mean, somebody thought Craig Kimbrell was a great reliever because he had some good years a while ago. Craig Kimbrell stinks right now, okay? Every team that's had him the last 3 years has given up on him. Kenley Jansen, it's a short candle and it burns out quickly for a reliever. They're like a comet. They're good for a while and then you can't count on them. The problem with a closer, when a closer has a bad day, you usually lose the game because you're bringing him in with a lead and he has a bad game and you lose the game you could have won. And for a middle reliever, you don't notice it so bad, or even a starter, okay? But a closer, if he has 2 or 3 bad outings over a course of 3 weeks, your feeling is the guy's losing us games. And they put a lot of money into this guy, and he had a great year last year. But I get uneasy when a lot of money goes to a closer. That's my thinking.
And for those at home that don't know how much the Mets paid for this closer, it's a 5-year deal for $102 million. That's $20 million per year, roughly. So that's how much the Mets signed him for 5 years. And he's right about 29 years old. So that's what they signed. And Dad has him number 2 on the list. Todd, what say you?
This is the worst thing you've ever done as my father, is put him on this list. There's no, I'm not going to say this lightly, but I kind of wonder about you and where your head's at. First of all, the two guys you mentioned are probably as old as me. They might be in their 40s, but they've lied on their birth certificates and said they're in their 30s. Edwin Diaz is a snappy 28 going on 29. He's full of vim and vigor. He's got the spice of life. He's got the trumpets of glory going for him. There's no way you can compare him to Kimbrell and Jansen. You're taking Kimbrell and Jansen from age 90 and comparing them to Diaz at age 28. It's not even close. It's not even close. And at this point, Diaz would need to turn into the worst version of Armando Benitez for Mets fans to boo him and to burn the jersey. This is horrible. This is horrible.
Wait, Mr. Matt.
Really, this is a horror. You could have picked Kenley Jansen. He was signed, but you didn't. You chose violence. You chose violence today. This is what you did.
Jansen's not making the money Diaz is. I just want to ask a question, Mr. Met. Was Jeurys Familia a closer with the Mets a few years ago?
He was.
He just got signed to a minor league contract. So closers flame out quickly.
We also carried John Franco until he was 75.
Yeah.
And he was saving games until he was 75. We had Billy Wagner. He saved games. Listen, this is not a bad signing. It's not going to disappoint us this year.
By
You're
Dad.
0 for 2. You're 0 for 2 and you're picking on my kids. You're picking on my people.
I have a big Mets influence in my picks.
Yeah.
I would argue that Dad's theory on closers, which I do not disagree with, is they're a great time. They're a good vacation. It's almost like a cruise ship, if you will. They're fast. They're furious. You have a good time. Everyone's ramped up and think it's wonderful. Just don't take the folks you meet at a cruise ship and make them lifelong friends. So Dad's concerned about the lifelong friendships you've made as the Mets organization with Mr. Diaz. Rarely so. Will he be the guy they burned the jersey of? Well, he's a closer, and I certainly burnt a couple jerseys back in the day. When the Diamondbacks won the World Series, we had a closer by the last name of Kim. He was terrible in the World Series and was never the same afterwards. And his career
His
ended.
name was Byung.
Yeah, he was young too. He wasn't 40. He was about Diaz's age.
I think he's still
These comparisons are getting worse all the time.
he's still in therapy, though. Mr. Kim is in therapy to this day about what happened in the World Series with the Yankees in the New York ballpark over and over and over again. Anyways, closers are always a good time. I can see that jersey getting burnt before Mr. DeGrom. However, the list goes on. And I know we're excited about number 1 and 2. Number 3 gets even better. Number 3 is Mr. Walker. So right off the bat, just for the record, all 3 of these players were either with the Mets and then signed away, or with the Mets and stayed with the Mets. Top 3 picks from our father. So I won't say he's wanting to get a reaction from Todd, but one would argue that we're trying to rile up Todd, which is fine. To fan the flames of Todd's spirit is fantastic. So what is the reason for Mr. Walker at number 3, Dad?
Well, one of the things the 3 of us are proving.
Sorry, I apologize. I do need to give you the terms. I keep forgetting to tell everybody the term. I keep thinking people are like us. We're just obsessed with money. This is a 4-year deal that he got. This 4-year deal is with the Philadelphia Phillies, stayed in the division, which I'm sure the Mets do not mind. And that's a lot of money, folks. $72 million total, $18 million per year. Dad, tell us why we're burning this jersey.
One of the things I'm aware of here is baseball's regional now. You know your team and the teams they play, but like Dylan Cease is amazing. None of us know what we're talking about because we don't follow that division. So if you people want to be critical of our narrowness, welcome to the world, okay? But I wasn't upset with Walker because he was a Met. I was upset with Walker because he was a Diamondback. Okay? He was a Diamondback before he got to be a Met.
Liar.
This guy he's an average pitcher. Maybe a little above average if you're going to compare him with a AAA guy. Okay? Somebody pitching in the minors. But he's going to come in, he's going to go 10-7, going to have an ERA of around 4. I think those guys are a dime a dozen. I didn't understand why they wanted to give this guy a lot of money for that many years. I mean, the best thing you can hope for this guy is he eats up a lot of innings, so your other pitchers don't get tired. But I don't even see him doing that. I don't think he's an inning eater at all. I just thought that was not a good contract. It didn't matter who signed him.
There was one other player that was signed for 4 years. Jameson Taillon.
Now, I like him.
Why?
I just think
What's the difference? Tell me what's the difference?
You would swap those two, Todd. Is that what you're
It's
saying?
the same pitcher. They're getting the same amount. But for some reason, Tijuana Walker is the one that you're going to pick on. I don't know why.
I don't add the numbers in front of me. What's their ages?
Walker's 30. Jameson is 31.
Well, can I give you a history lesson to argue for Dad as a Diamondback fan?
All right.
Walker played in 2018 and 29 for the Diamondbacks. Do you want to know how many total games he pitched in those 2 seasons? 4.
Okay.
4. He pitched 14 innings in 2 years for the Diamondbacks. So to say that this is like sandpaper being rubbed on your skin for Dad is probably a fair comparison. Dad was robbed of this pitcher. The Diamondbacks signed him, told us all sorts of wonderful things about him, and he basically didn't show up to the ball.
He came from Seattle where he was average. I mean, I don't know how this guy got to be worth all this money.
It sounds like a you problem to me.
I'm okay. I am so far. I'm enjoying this list because I would like to see his jersey burnt, and I can see the Philly fans burning this jersey because as he blows a game at the end of the year to give this division to the Braves or the Mets or whomever, I can see the Phillies getting really upset with this pitcher. Granted, he's your number 3 or 4, but if he goes out there and gives you 4 wins and 12 losses, you're going to be pretty upset with this guy.
I would love for anybody who got signed away from the Mets to have a horrible year, but this is not a bad signing for the Phillies.
What was Jameson's record last year with the Yankees?
He had a 3.91 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP, 13 wins. His WAR was 1.36, 177 innings. He's what we call a journeyman.
Well, you could argue.
How many innings did Walker give the Mets?
157, 12 wins, 1.2 WHIP.
You could argue
4.9 ERA, 2.27 WAR.
You could argue that Walker's 4 years versus Talien's 3 is a big deal.
They both got 4 years.
I have. I do apologize. I'm sorry. The extra million.
Oh,
72 versus 68. That's what made Dad go over the top.
was the extra $4 million on there?
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
I just will tell the Phillies, you're going to be disappointed in Taijuan Walker when he's not pitching after the 1st of May.
Well, I will say this, that if anybody's going to burn a jersey, it's going to be a Phillies fan.
I would have just picked Philly signings. That's one thing you could have done to make it very easy, considering their raucous history.
Well, who's burning in Philly?
Anybody they don't like. Anybody they don't like. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
Bill Burr went on a 10-minute rant about Philly that became world famous just because he was doing a stand-up show there and they booed the comic in front of him. And so he went out and just ripped him for 10 minutes. He forgot his whole set and just did that. It's legendary. It's Philly. I mean, it's the...
All right, folks. I know you needed to take a break because we just got through number 3. Number 4, this is our first player who was not on the Mets. Has no affiliation to the Mets, doesn't even know the Mets exist, probably because he's enjoying his new signing. This is Zach Eflin. Not Zach Efron. This is Zach Efron. Zach Efron went from the Philadelphia Phillies, and now he signed with the Tampa Bay Rays for a 3-year, $40 million deal. And Dad, you've ranked him number 4 as one of the biggest disappointments that a team could sign in the offseason, and that is going to be Tampa Bay Rays are going to be upset.
This is a hard one for me because I think Tampa Bay is so smart. I think they're a really intelligent organization, but for the life of me, when I looked at Zach's record, I couldn't see $40 million in there. So if I was just on a hunch, I'd say Tampa Bay's smarter than me. But in the end, I don't see $40 million for this guy. I just don't see what's there. So somebody who's smarter than me, which is most of the universe anyway, tell me what's the deal with Zach?
Todd, the number 4 is Zach with the Rays.
I don't disagree with this one because I couldn't even tell you what he brought to the table other than his 4-point ERA. This is a decent. I think Tampa's going to be disappointed in this one. I don't disagree with you.
Did he start? What was his deal with the Phillies?
I think he was. Wasn't he a reliever? No, he was a starter.
He pitched in 20 games last year. He started 13 of them. Had 75 and 2/3 innings. He is exactly what Tampa wants, and this is why I think Tampa's going to be the laugher of this deal, to your point, Dad. You may not make sense of it. It may actually make sense for the Phillies. Tampa loves the middle relief. Tampa loves the guy that they can bring in the 4th inning, pitch 2 innings, possibly 3 before they get to their bullpen. Tampa is doing things like that all the time. So for them to look at a pitcher like this who has a 4 ERA as a starter, for them to bring him in, have him pitch, those middle innings or an inning here or an inning there. They love those guys. Does this mean he's better? He's 29. He's not terrible. And again, is it a ton of money? Not really. To your point, that's why I think Tampa may like him, why he shouldn't probably be on the list. But if they start him and they want him to go 6 or 7 innings, they'll be terribly disappointed, but I don't see Tampa doing that.
I think probably what you could have put at fourth instead of him, and this would have been a bigger one, would have been Anderson for the Angels. I think they're going to be incredibly disappointed in him.
I think the Angels are always disappointed, so I think that's pretty level set. I think we probably are. I'm not going to speak for anyone on our staff, but we're probably going to come up with an Angels top 5 because every year they clearly.
I think they only signed 5 people, so it would just be everybody they signed.
All of them bad.
But they're going to be more disappointed. But I think they're going to be more disappointed because they expect Anderson to come in and replicate what he did, over crosstown with the Dodgers the year before, and that's not going to happen. I think he's going to be a complete return to the 5.0 ERA. Let me be a walking disaster type pitcher.
Do you know who does like the signing that every Angels signing has? Do you know who does like those? The Astros. The Astros are big fans of whatever the Angels do. And Seattle. We have to tip our cap to Seattle. Seattle is just basically run around them, lap them, if you will. All right, back to the list, everybody. I know you're waiting in bated breath for number 5.
You redeemed yourself a little with number 4, Dad.
Todd likes
you to know.
Shocking that a non-Met. He's very happy. The next one is also not a Met. He's never been a Met. And he was signed by Boston, who I think deserves an F this offseason in offseason signings because they make no sense at all to me. This one is it goes in line with your theory, Dad, as far as relief pitchers are concerned. Kenley Jansen was signed by Boston. And Todd, you brought him up earlier. This guy is 35 years old. So he's a little old for a reliever. He comes from Atlanta and also from the Dodgers. Boston signed him for 2 years, $32 million, $16 million per year. And Dad, I probably don't need to ask you why you put him on the list, but please tell us why.
Well, they could have signed Craig Kimbrel if they're just looking for old, outdated relievers, probably for less money. But the good news for the Red Sox is they're not very good. So they won't have many closing opportunities where Kenley Jansen come in with a lead. So he probably won't get a lot of blown saves because not going to have a lot of saves to be had. But Kenley Jansen, his book value is 3 years ago. Since then, he has depreciated immensely. Given that guy $32 million, I always go to this thing. Are your minor leagues so bad that you can't bring up some guys for minimum and find somebody to do pretty much as much, or bring up a guy for 2 weeks and then another guy for 2 weeks and maybe get the same results? I think Kenley Jansen's just, no matter who would have signed him, if the Braves give up on you, you're done. The Braves don't give up on people of value. They just don't.
Todd, what do you think of number 5?
If we're going to stick to relief pitchers, I think Houston has to be really careful with Montero. He's a 32-year-old that you signed for 3 years at $11.5 million a year. That's risky. And I think you got to take, listen, the Phillies signed Kimbrel, so whatever's going on there. But San Diego, I don't know what they're thinking with this 5-year deal for Robert Suarez. It basically $9.2 million a year for 5 years. This guy's 31 going on 32 years old. Those are two that I think are up there. I am not going to argue with you on Jansen. This is the one that I think that you got spot on. This guy should be number 1 on the list. And well, I would say anybody from Boston could be number 1 on the list, but this Kenley Jansen one, this is number 1. This is number 1 on the list for me. This is a dopey signing on their part, and the fact that they went 2 years rather than 1 is just remarkably dumb. But I think that those others are honorable mentions on the reliever side with Montero and Suarez. I think you got to be cautious there with those.
Can I tell you who tempted me?
Don't say Edwin Diaz.
No, who tempted me was another Met, Michael Conforto with the Giants. I'm not sure about him, and I was tempted to pick him, but I'll say, hey, he was a good guy. Maybe I won't bring him into this discussion.
So I think Boston's going through what a lot of companies go through when you have had a lot of success, and now there's this new age of fear, if you will, where the GM wants to show people that they're interested and they want to make a signing. So he walks into a meeting or a room and says, hey, we need to make a splash. And everyone's too scared to be honest. So he says, I really like Jansen. So they put a deal together and they pass it all the way through. The owner signs off on what the GM does. And nobody really vets it because the staff is too scared to say the obvious thing in the room is that Jensen's done. I don't think the 2 years you get out of him, I don't think are going to be worth much. But to Dad's point, they're not going to be in anything the next 2 years. I mean, the Yankees...
Who did Boston sign that's not done? Look at the list of people they signed. Jansen. Who's in that? Justin Turner. He's done. Chris Martin. He's done. Corey Kluber. He's done. Adam Duvall. He's done. Jolie Rodriguez. Maybe not done, but the rest of them are done. What did they do? They're going out and rent a player and sign their Medicare cards and then bring them in?
It's really bad. I think it's a staff issue internally to Boston. They're trying to sign names that they want to look like they're doing something, but again, I'm going to reiterate Dad's point. It's not like Boston's going to be in this. They are clearly on the bottom seller of the East now. I think Baltimore has a lot of upside. Tampa's fine. Boston finished dead last, and I think they're going to finish dead last again.
Yep.
Yeah, it feels like...
And they should get an F.
You're not in the same league with Toronto or Tampa.
Nope.
And so it's sad. I think they're having a hard time in Boston. I think the fans are still upset about the Mookie trade. They don't think they've come back from that.
Well, look what they did at third base with Devers. You're going to tell me that was a good deal. You made this guy one of the highest paid players ever in baseball, Rafael Devers. You want to talk about team off seasons? The Boston Red Sox. I mean, they
were in a position of check, not checkmate yet, but check when they lost Bogarts.
Right.
Okay. Now they can't. They got to do something. So they sign Devers to just show the fans that we got somebody who can hit in this ballpark. But no, it was a bad move. But they got positioned once they lost Bogarts. They've already lost Mookie, JD Martinez. He's gone.
Right.
Holy cow. I mean.
Yeah, I think the AL East is pretty much set, and Boston doesn't have a shot. And I think any Boston fan out there who's watching their team and looking at this team knows they don't have a shot. And if you're the Yankees, the joy that Boston has right now is watching the Yankees flounder in the playoffs every year because they are just trying their hardest to get to the series, and they can't seem to make it out of the playoffs on the AL side. So if you're Boston... If you're Boston...
We know about Boston and New England. They only track winners. Right now, the only professional teams they have are the Bruins, who are just killing it, and the Celtics. There are no other sports in Boston, okay? They don't discuss it when their teams can't win. They don't even discuss the sport. So right now, it's hockey and NBA, and those are the only two sports that exist in New England right now.
It's a fair argument. They certainly didn't sign anyone that makes it feel that way. But if the good news for those folks that haven't been to Fenway Park, it is a wonderful venue, and you will be able to get tickets this year. And if you want to go visit, this is the time. Go watch the Boston play any teams that are better than them, which is everyone in the division. If you wanted to really go to an empty stadium, Boston Rays, check on those games because, again, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays have no fans either.
Is Oakland going into Boston for a couple games? Those would be good seats.
You know what would be really fantastic is to watch Texas play Boston because they're going to be battling out for one of those high draft picks this year.
Texas?
Yeah, I always have to give a shout out for Texas and oh dear Lord. I would love to things that I would love to see that are not going to happen. I know your list is fantastic, so let's recap the top 5 before I go into the things I would love to see. So Todd does not like this list very much. That's okay. This is why we do these things. Dan's list consists of Jacob deGrom. He signed that massive deal with Texas. Edwin Diaz signed with the Mets as a relief pitcher, their closer. Tijuana Walker, Mr. Walker, he signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. Zach Efron signed with the Tampa Bay Rays. And Kenley Jansen signed with the Boston Red Sox. Those are your top 5 from our dad as far as players that you're going to be disappointed that they're on your roster. And you're not going to be looking forward to when they take the ball or take the mound, if you will, because all 5 are pitchers. 2 relievers, 3 starters, or maybe 3 relievers, 2 closers, 1 reliever, 2 starters. There's what you got. That's Dad's list. That's what he has for you.
Didn't even talk about Correa.
No, he did not.
People are going to be disappointed in him. They're going to be disappointed in Joey Gallo. There's going to be a lot of disappointment in Minnesota. Nobody's talking about. You're not bringing up like the obvious. These are the obvious ones that nobody's talking about right now. Tyler Anderson, Carlos Correa, Joey Gallo. This is a buffet of suck that writes itself right there.
I can tell you that the sweetest fruit, you have to dig deep into the bush to find it, and Dad has dug deep to find that. Todd, I understand what you're saying, but a lot of that fruit just land on the ground. So, I mean, there's some easy pickings there. I agree with you, but I agree with Dad on some of these takes. It'll be very interesting.
Which ones do you agree with? I want to know which ones you agree with. I just want to know how far from the tree the apple has fallen.
I think deGrom is an easy number 1. I think it's so
You're such a loser.
I wouldn't put $1 on that bet. Wouldn't put 100. I wouldn't put anything on that bet for deGrom to get anything other than, please give me an over/under on innings pitched. I want that bet. That's the bet I want with deGrom. Diaz.
It's got to be 100. The over/under's got to be 100.
I'm still on the under.
That's an easy over.
75 and I'm on the under.
He's not.
The best part is when I go visit their spring training facility, how odd will it be when he gets injured, like slipping on his cleats?
He's not going to get injured. He's playing Cy Young, American League Cy Young. It's set.
This is why you have to, he's playing and he's going to be seeing the team that's better than them every day in spring training. The Seattle Mariners train in the same facility. He's going to have to watch that juggernaut and say, man, we're not as good as them. The only way that I get out of this is if I pretend I'm injured and I don't pitch a lot so they don't blame me for the fact that we're not very good again.
If I pretend I'm injured. Oh, God.
Because that's what our athletes do now.
It's so horrible.
Pretending an injury. Oh, Lord have mercy. All right, Dad. Closing thoughts on your list. Does Todd make a fair point picking up the dirty fruit that's hanging around the tree?
No, I agree with you, Brendan. Everybody knows Joey Gallo was a horrible signing. I mean, so that's just easy. What, did he make $11 million and JD Martinez made $10? Who can explain that? So, but those are easy ones. I just had to go with my gut. Sometimes your gut isn't right, but you got to give it a try.
And Todd?
Martin Perez. If you're going to pick a Texas pitcher, that's the one that's going to disappoint is Martin Perez.
I'm still amazed he only signed for 1 year.
Well,
after last year.
It's going to be a year of sadness and shame.
Well, I mean, the good news about all these pitchers that Texas signed is they're going to have a lot of good golf stories. That's what they're going to have. A lot of good golf stories. Well, I'm your host, Brendan. I appreciate you joining us for the first of many, the disappointed signings list. And I hope that you are as disappointed in these signings as we are. Feel free to comment. Let us know how good or bad we did. Dad, thanks for the list. I appreciate it. Todd, I'm looking forward to yours. And as your host, thank you for tuning in to Swing Batter Podcast.